Okay, we now have Desmond Wheatley, CEO of Envision Solar, on the line, and we're going to get started with our Q&A session. Desmond, our first question is, do the recent difficulties for solar panel manufacturers have an impact on your business, either positive or negative?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me. I'm delighted to be doing this. And the answer is very much so. They do have impacts for us, and I'll cover both the positive and the negative. The negative is the easiest one to cover in the shortest space of time, and that is simply one of perception. Because we have the name solar in our company name, Envision Solar, people tend to read things that are going poorly with the solar industry, the broader solar industry, or the components piece of it, as negative news for us. But in fact, the opposite is the case. Our product is an integration, a clever integration of lots of other people's commonly available off-the-shelf products, and a big piece of it are solar components. And so when I look at the commoditization of that part of the industry, and when I look at the margin erosion, I look at the difficulties that lots of people are having in that business, what that spells for me is actually cost reduction. The cost contributors in my final product, which come from those companies who are under that tremendous pressure, come down, and at the same time the quality of their products and the production of electricity from their products goes up. So it's actually been very helpful for us. We're able to buy now components today for half the price that we were paying for them just a little over a year ago, and frankly they're of a higher quality than they were at that time. That ends up equaling either broader margins for us or opportunities to pass on some cost savings to our customers, which would give us a broader potential audience. So in general, very good news for us, but as I say, from a perception point of view, sometimes it's a bit tricky.
Okay, thank you. In our next question we have, are there particular regions that are adopting your product faster than others?
Funnily enough, everybody assumes that because, again, we have the name solar in our industry, that we're talking about the southeast and places where the sun shines brightly. But first of all, from a technology point of view, it turns out that the actual PV or the solar modules that we use operate better when they're cooler than when they're hotter. So lots of sunshine in a cool environment is actually the best type of an environment. But I'd like to draw everybody's attention to the fact that a country like Germany, for example, has the highest adoption of solar of any country in the world. They have dreadful weather if you haven't been there. I mean, not all the time, but I spent a lot of time in Germany, and it's very often cloudy and rainy. So solar actually works. The PV modules, especially the high-quality PV modules that we use, work very well in even overcast or rainy. And in fact, even with as much as 6 inches of snow on the modules, they will wake up and start to work and cook the snow off there. So the regional drivers are more about where are the customers that care about having high-quality structures, having something which is acting as much as a green billboard and a property improvement as it is a renewable energy generation plant. And again, that's how we differentiate. We're not really trying to go out there and compete with the utility. We're creating high-quality structures which improve people's properties and improve their image. And it doesn't seem that, at least in the United States, there's any region that favors that more than another. And we've had great luck all over the country, except I must admit we haven't really done anything in the Northwest yet. But I think that's more an accident of customer mix than any sort of macro indicator.
Okay. And our next question, what is the value proposition for a parking lot to invest in your solar products?
So think of our products as part property improvement, part media and branding platform, part renewable energy generation plant, and part electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And if you add all of those four things together, you get the value proposition. And I'll give you two examples. In the commercial real estate environment, where a commercial real estate property owner's occupancy rates are not where they'd like them to be, as many aren't today, the simple fact is that covering their parking in cool, shaded, beautiful solar tree structures like ours can have a significant impact in shortening lease-up times and increasing tenant retention. And so our value proposition to that commercial real estate owner is, again, saving money against your utility bills is useful and it's important, and that will happen if you put solar trees in place. But it's much more important to do something that will attract better tenants sooner and keep them longer. That adds a lot more value to your property than just saving some money on your electric bill. So that's really where we aim. And in another environment, if we look at very famously what we're doing right now for Cadillac in the auto dealership environment, GM cares a lot about sustainability, so does Cadillac, and they care about saving money on their utility bills. But also our solar trees are a beautiful and very eye-catching way of attracting attention to Cadillac and showing the new and younger generation of Cadillac buyers that they really are bold and visionary and that they're doing something to move forward. So the value proposition there is as much about helping sell more new Cadillacs as it is about maintaining sustainability and reducing utility bills. It's a big green billboard in many ways, but it's very, very practical, and it's a billboard that is very popular, good for the environment, good for the built environment, and instead of being a cost center, is actually a revenue center.
Thank you, Desmond. Our next question we have is, what is the cost of one of your solar arrays versus a plug-in station for an electric car?
That's a great question. And I'm someone who spends an awful lot of time looking at costs, so I'm going to ask you to be very open-minded about this. If you take the cost of a solar powered electric vehicle charging station, like our EV Arc, for example, which is standalone, and compare it to a simple pedestal-mounted EV charger, the cost for the solar is higher initially to buy. But when you compare the total cost of ownership, which includes all the site acquisition and building permits and trenching and easements and leases that you might have to go through to put an EV charger in, even if it's on your own property, and then you compare the lifetime of increased kilowatt hour charges and potentially demand charges and various other things that go along with that, any sophisticated buyer who's prepared to look at life cycle costs will find that it's going to be far less expensive in the long run to install a solar-powered EV charger. And then when you add to that the fact that certainly the first couple of generations of electric vehicle buyers really do care about where the electricity is coming from. It's not good enough for them to be tailpipe emissions-free. They really want to be fully emissions-free. Well, frankly, that means not using electricity which is being generated through the burning of coal or natural gas. And so there are other benefits as well. But at the end of the day, again, if you look at life cycle costs, if you use a quality product, and we only build very, very high quality products designed to last for a long time, these things will pay for themselves hands down over and over again.
Okay, great. And our next question, how have you achieved the level of speed of installation, and what does this mean for shareholders?
Yeah, it's very, very important for shareholders, and the reasons are pretty obvious. We have transitioned Envision from a company which was a project-based company a couple of years ago. In other words, they went out and took each installation as a separate project and a lot of billable hours and that sort of thing. Transitioned away from that and moved towards being a product company. And the reason is simple. With the same head count, the same overhead, we can do thousands of solar trees that we used to be able to do tens or hundreds with, and that has obvious repercussions for our shareholders and also for our customers. We have modularized our products. We have productized our solar trees such that we can send out a highly engineered kit of parts which is bolted together very rapidly. It's quite complex, but it's easy to put together with a very low-skilled team and a small amount of equipment in the field. To the point where we are now, instead of taking 15 or 20 weeks, which is what it used to take 2 or 3 years ago to put a solar tree in the ground, our record to date was 4.5 days, and we are even able to install our Cadillac trees in about 7 days. Now, that speed of deployment means that we can deploy far more solar trees than we ever could have in the past and reduce the in-the-field risks, which reduces margin erosion and all the other problems that you can have in the in-field thing. And then from a customer point of view, it ends up being a great selling proposition for us too, because as we sit down with our customers and we compare ourselves, we're differentiating from anybody else in the industry, aside from the unique nature of our products, and they are unique. We can also demonstrate that while our competitors might have their parking lot dug up for weeks or months on end, we'll be in and out in a couple of days. And I can tell you that for a retail environment or a car dealership or a commercial real estate property owner, the speed of deployment, our ability to get on and off their properties without disrupting their core business is often more important to them than any other aspect of the deployment. So all of that means more solar trees deployed with less risk, less cost, and all of that, of course, ends up means gross margins, which end up being inevitably channeled to the bottom line, which is earnings per share.
Okay, great. And we have one final question. Seems like you have some very big opportunities. How is a company of your size going to execute on them all?
So actually the perfect follow-on question to the one you just asked me. We do have some massive opportunities, really big brand names. We're very proud to have the only Cadillac branded product in the industry. It's not easy to do that. I'd challenge anybody who's listening to think of another product that they know of that's Cadillac branded, which isn't a vehicle. Well, we have one. And then we have some other major deployments. We announced a 2,300 solar tree rollout in North Carolina here in the end of this year in 2014. And then a couple other similar hundreds of products. We could never have done that a few years ago. But now that we have this highly modularized, highly productized kit of parts that we can send out, we're not reliant on small teams of people to install them. Just about anyone can install them with some minor instruction and supervision. And then similarly, we've been able to identify several fabrication facilities that can handle our growth for us. As a matter of fact, I'm speaking to you right now from one of our outsourced fabrication facilities who is ready and waiting and champing at the bit, frankly, to start churning out solar trees in volume, but at very, very high quality for us. So we've really spent the last couple of years re-engineering the product so that they're modularized and so that we can deploy them in great scale. But at the same time, we have been out sourcing the resources, like the one I'm standing in right now, who will be capable of taking on this and this growth as it comes and pouring solar trees and EV arcs off the line like a production facility.
Okay, and that was our last question. We want to thank you again for your time today, Desmond, in presenting the Envision Solar International story.
My pleasure. It's been a pleasure doing it. I thank everybody who's paid attention and for their support for the company. We love what we're doing.
Very good. Thank you again. Thank you again, Desmond.